and welcome to New Jersey Politics with Laura Jones. I am Laura Jones, and we are so glad to have you here. It's a pivotal year for New Jersey as the race for governor heats up ahead of the 2025 election. We have invited every candidate running for governor to appear on the show, and we've brought you those conversations. Today, we are bringing you three more candidates. All of them are on the Democratic side. Coming up are my conversations with Congressman Josh Gottheimer and former State Senate President Steve Sweeney. First up, we have Congresswoman Mikie Sherrill. Mikie Sherrill is a member of Congress running in the Democratic primary for governor in the state of New Jersey. She is also a former helicopter pilot in the Navy. Congressman, welcome. It's so good to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, as I mentioned, you served in Congress, and before that, you were serving our country in the Navy. So why do you believe now is the right time to run for governor in New Jersey?
Well, as I say, in the Navy, we were trained to run to the fight. And right now, we have a crisis on our hands in this country. Everything from the attacks on our economy with this chaotic tariff regime to detaining people without charges and then refusing judicial orders. It has come to the point where I think we are really going to rely on our Democratic governors to guide us forward on a different path. That's why I'm running for governor. Because I think, excuse me, go ahead.
Well, I was going to let you finish what you were saying. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, we really need to envision a different path forward from the one we're seeing coming from Washington.
Well, when you look at New Jersey, what would you say is the number one issue facing New Jersey families right now, and what would you do in your administration to address it?
Well, it's affordability. I hear about it all the time. And that's why I think standing up to Washington is so important, even to those state issues, because I talk to small business owners here in New Jersey who say, look, I'm stopping all development right now because my HVAC guy just told me prices are going up 20 to 30%. The coffee store around the corner from my house has put out a note that tariffs are going to force up prices for coffee because coffee beans are imported. So everything from coffee to home building to just starting up a new restaurant, all of the supply chain issues are really causing people to take a step back. And I think that's why we see so many economists suggesting that a recession's coming. But at the same time, we need to address affordability concerns here in New Jersey. I'm going to build more houses, make sure we're driving into new power sources so we can bring down utility costs and fix some of our broken healthcare system.
Yeah, well, there's so many things that are broken in New Jersey, and you're touching on things, everything from small businesses to affordability to housing. Can you talk a little bit more, dive a little bit deeper into the affordability housing market in New Jersey? Everything, from the amount of taxes people pay to the ability to have access to affordable housing.
Sure. So as I started Congress years ago, it was the state and local tax deduction cap, which I've long worked to end. I've gotten it through the House several times, fixes to it. But right now, what I'm hearing most about is simply the cost of homes, the cost of mortgages. And then for people who are priced out of owning a home, they've moved into the rental market, forcing other people out of their apartments that they've had for a long time. I spoke to a woman in Patterson who's retired and had to go back to work just to afford her rent. So we see it at every level. And that's why you're never going to make New Jersey more affordable if we don't make housing more affordable. And we see the cost of this everywhere. New Jersey has the second worst inventory across the nation. Jersey City has the second worst rental prices in the nation, second highest last year. We see Newark being rated the worst place for renters in the nation. So these are all hits to people across the state. One woman I spoke to in Jersey City at a roundtable told me she was paying 70% of her income on rent. She's never going to get ahead at that rate. We have to build more houses. And that's what my plan does, is remediate commercial properties, develop in areas like Fort Monmouth that have already been developed, but we can redevelop them for more housing, making sure we're envisioning a new path forward to really focus on that missing middle. Those homes that first-time homeowners can buy, or people who are retiring as they want to move out of the home they raised their children in. Right now, that's just not possible for people.
In order to get anything done in Trenton, you have to be able to work across the aisle, and you've done that in Congress. So can you talk a little bit about that, especially in these highly, highly polarized times right now? How do you bring that spirit of bipartisanship to Trenton, to New Jersey? You know, this is a very closely divided state. We saw in the last election, President Trump doing a lot better than many people expected, and people are saying, well, it's not necessarily such a blue state so much anymore, it's more purple.
Well, I would argue that we're going to find out in November that this is a blue state. However, you're exactly right. To get stuff done in a legislative branch, and I've been serving in one, you need to build out broad coalitions of support. So I got to work on day one in Congress, a place that most people said wasn't working well. I would argue it's even worse now, but got to work right away. And in only my second term, I was named the most effective legislator from New Jersey. And that's because of building these coalitions around the things we needed to see our state move to deliver for our state. I've continued that work in the district, whether it's flooding or mental health or making sure that people had access to pump stations with some of the deluges of rain that come down in our towns. Again and again and again, I've reached out to those people on the ground, Democrats and Republicans alike, that want to get things done. And that I think we can continue to build in Trenton. And I would say we can even continue to build that with Democrats and Republicans in Trenton against the Trump administration. Because I will tell you, many of the Republicans I work with here know that this is not a good path forward for New Jersey. They don't want to see people taken to prison without charges. They don't want to see attacks on the Department of Education, Social Security, Medicaid. So I think we can build broad coalitions of support, both for what we need to do here for the economy of New Jersey and also how we need to stand against the attacks coming from Washington and the Trump administration.
Finally, before we close out our segment, why should voters choose you over the other Democrats in the primary? There are 6 people. What sets you apart?
Well, I think we see a broad field, but, I think it's going to take both somebody that wants to chart a different path forward, that brings a new kind of leadership. Same old politics or people who've been in office for decades is not going to work here. We need a new vision for our state, not only against what's coming from Washington, but for the people of New Jersey and how we're going to drive down affordability. So it's going to be a tough race. You mentioned how New Jersey did swing to the right, and I want to swing it back to make sure that we double down on some of these priorities. I have a track record of winning. Many people in the race have never run against a Republican candidate. I've not only run against a Republican in a Trump district, but was able to have one of the best voter outreach programs in the state, turning out voters, both the Democratic base, but also people who become disenchanted and disengaged with politics, turning out a lot of independents and even a large portion for a Democrat of registered Republicans. So I think that's the broad coalition that a candidate needs to build to make sure that we can set our state on a better track forward.
Congresswoman Mikie Sherrill, Democrat for governor in New Jersey, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it, and have a great one.
You too.
Food brings people together. On Cooking with Copel, we combine culinary creativity with good conversation. This spring, we've invited all the candidates for governor to come into the Montclair kitchen, teach me to cook their favorite dish, and give the people of New Jersey a chance to get to know the individuals who would lead our state. It's going to be a fun and exciting way to get really involved in the democratic process. Can't wait to see you there.
Steve Sweeney is a Democrat running in the primary for governor in the state of New Jersey. He is the former Senate president in the state of New Jersey and my guest right now. Senator, good to see you. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
It's great to see you again.
Absolutely. You've been around politics for decades. Why are you running for governor now?
Because we need a governor that actually knows what they're going to do. Laura, nothing against the other candidates. Every governor I've dealt with, the first 2 years, they're figuring it out. And right now, we don't need to have somebody with on-the-job training. We need somebody that knows what they're doing. And as I say, I know where the lights and the bathrooms are day one. And it's important to make sure that, especially now with what we got going on federally, there's no time for learning. You really need experience, and I think I'm the most experienced when it comes to state government.
You know what it's like to work across the aisle. You've worked under a Republican administration, a Democratic administration, so you think that's what separates you from the candidates. Some might say, hey, you're part of the system, and we need somebody from outside the system.
I'm actually from the part to fix the things that are broken. You know, I mean, the pension system was bankrupt. We fixed it. We fixed school funding. Still need tweaks on it, but, you know, we made progress. I'm from the part of the Democrat Party I'm not a partisan. I am a Democrat, 1,000% a Democrat. But I'm not going to focus on partisan politics. I'm going to focus on what the need of the state is. And the state needs to be more affordable.
Is that your number one priority? Can you talk about your top three priorities as you are going through campaigning? The cost of living is always an issue in New Jersey.
Well, it's the economy. It will always be the economy because people worry about, do I have a job that I can pay my bills, I can take care of my family? Then it's affordability, reducing the cost here because it's just too expensive. There's too much government. We need to reduce cost. And on a personal note, I want to deal with the housing crisis. You know, too many young people are being denied the opportunity to get started with their lives because the houses are too expensive. And and one other little sector of that is one of my main priorities is solving the housing crisis for people with disabilities. You know, I have a daughter with a disability. I'm getting older. If something was to happen to me, and my wife, my daughter, is going to have one or two things going to happen. They're going to institutionalize her if we don't have someone who can help her, or they'll put her somewhere where because we don't have enough housing, it won't work. And you know, people with disabilities have personalities, and you know, and so for me, there's some real priorities. But like I said, the economy and affordability are very important.
You know, your daughter was what motivated you to run for public office in the first place, and her needs.
Well, her birth, you know, Laura, like I believe everyone has a purpose or a function in life, and a lot of times we as people don't find it. Lauren helped me find mine, you know, because I'm a big tough guy. I've always been a tough guy. I'm a union iron worker, but most importantly, I'm a father. And when I saw the way people with disabilities were treated, you know, I saw people with disabilities. I wasn't living in that world. When she was born, I was born into a new universe. And you can do one of two things. You can sit back and accept, or you can stand up and fight. And I've been fighting ever since to try to make lives better for people with disabilities.
Yeah, and I'd like to follow up on that a little bit. You know, as governor, what would you do to help eliminate some of these layers of red tape? Whether you have a child with needs or you are somebody who's retired, aging in the state of New Jersey, middle class, whatever, accessing the things that you need, what you're entitled to, what you pay taxes for, seems increasingly difficult. What can you do to help eliminate the difficulty and challenges of living in New Jersey?
Listen to people, listen to the advocacy groups, listen to the people that are doing it every day. Like I said, you know, the frustration that you run into when you have a loved one with a disability, the barriers that are put in place, that just, you know, how hard everything happens to be, you can always do things better. And bringing the advocates in and sitting them down and saying, what do we need to do to eliminate this? What do we need to eliminate to make it easier without causing harm? And I can tell you, we're overregulated, and we have to find ways. In fact, I told people, put the language that I got to deal with in iron worker speak. So, you know, like, you know, I'm an iron worker. I'm not a dumb guy by any means. And I'm not, but just common speak so it's easier rather than trying to get a dictionary to figure out what the hell they're saying.
And that's the thing. Myself as a reporter, you as a former legislator know some of the language, and it's still hard to access certain services and things that you need. So for so many people, they don't even know what they don't know.
And government's great with having all these programs, and we brag about everything, but we don't tell you how to access them.
Right. Exactly, exactly. So what you've taken a pledge that you are not going to raise taxes. So
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit about that? And also, I like what people don't know how to access services. And we're seeing this on at motor vehicles right now, accessing real IDs and such. What can you do to ensure there's transparency so people know what is available, how to get help?
Well, it's first look around the country, see who's doing it better. You know what I mean? It's not like you have to create the wheel every time. What we have isn't working well. So coming up with a system that's easier for people to access, is obviously very important. And New Jersey, we're just too regulated. We put the regulation on top of regulation. So starting to peel those things back, and honestly, we have to stop taxing in New Jersey. Government should be there for the people that need it, like my daughter, the disabled, the poor, seniors. But government, we can't do everything with government. So what we've done is we continue to expand and create new programs and everything else that we really can't afford. So now we turn around and we tax. Listen, this next round of taxes, laser tag, bowling, all these 1.2 billion. Well, we got to look within the budget and Laura, come up with a better process. And I actually proposed a better process, which is multi-year budgeting and consensus forecasting, because the system we have stinks. Now, I'm the only candidate that has said, that's running for governor, that I would give up power, because to come up with a better budgeting process to where, people are reading numbers and not even knowing what they passed, at 3 o'clock in the morning. That's embarrassing. Government's supposed to be able to run more efficiently like that. And just because the federal government does it doesn't mean we should do it. You know what I mean? That they're the example of failure, so we can do it better, but it does take the governor being willing to give up some authority to do multi-year budgeting. Counties do 5-year budgets and 6-year capital plans. We don't do any planning. It's year to year. And if you give some funding for programs for like helping people with autism, and all of a sudden, that group gets hired, they hire the people go to them, and then the next year it's gone. So planning so that we can have more consistency, and like I said, we have a bad budget process. We get the Volcker Group gave New Jersey a D for budgeting because they don't have an F. So I know D's aren't the best grades. I know we could do better.
All right, Senator, final thoughts. Where can people go to find out more about your policies and positions?
My website, stevesweeney.com, stevesweeneyforgovernor.com.
All right. Senator, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Joining us now is Congressman Josh Gottheimer, a Democrat running for governor here in New Jersey. You're joining us from your car. There is a reason you're joining us from your car. You were in a mishap at the Washington, D.C. airport. Can you tell us what happened and make sure first and foremost that you're okay?
I am, thank God, and so is everyone else, so that's a great thing. We were on the plane today coming home from Washington, and sitting on the runway, and another plane came by and clipped our wing, right? So their wing hit our wing, plane shook violently, and let's just say I'm driving back right now. But everyone's okay, but it's not the way to fly these days.
Congressman, we're so glad that you're okay and the other passengers on the plane are okay. Let's shift our focus to New Jersey's race for governor. You've got a great job as a member of Congress representing your constituents in Washington, D.C. Why do you want to give that up and be New Jersey's governor?
Well, first, I love my job, and I'm very grateful and honored that people have sent me here for the last years. And I've been very focused on one thing, getting things done for Jersey families and fighting hard for people, never backing down from anyone who messes with our state, messes with Jersey. I helped write and pass the infrastructure bill, which is fixing our roads and bridges and building the Gateway train tunnel, expanding the child tax credit to help people pay for child care, passed a gun safety bill, bipartisan which was first one in 30 years. So we've gotten a lot done. And I look at Jersey and want to make sure, that we address some of the issues we're facing, some of the challenges back in the state. that I hear about all the time when I go to every diner and sit down, and people say to me, "I love Jersey. I'm like me, they're from Jersey, want to raise their kids here and stay here when they retire, but it's just too damn expensive." And they're looking for someone to help them and to make life more affordable, get our taxes down, get our costs down. And I can do it. I've got a plan. I've done things that people think are impossible, as I just mentioned, some of the toughest stuff. And people want a fighter and a problem solver. And that's what I'm going to do as governor.
Everybody is talking about affordability as being the #1 issue. What specifically is in your plan? What can you do to address that issue and make a real change here in New Jersey?
I've been focused on getting costs down and lowering taxes since I got elected in 2016. On my first lawn sign, and ever since, it says lower taxes, Jersey values. My gubernatorial lawn sign says exactly the same thing, because I think this is always top of mind in a state like ours, right? It's just too expensive. So I put out a tax cut plan, which cuts property taxes by nearly 15%, gives seniors a break to help them afford to stay here. It gives them a senior bonus when they turn 70. It gives a middle-class income tax cut and a rental rebate, and gives incentives to bring jobs here, because growth and getting more jobs is key, because we're now, as you probably know, the #1 out-migration state in the country 7 years running, and with the highest property taxes and some of the highest costs around. So we got to get these costs down. And I put out an expert-backed plan that I've been working on for more than a year to actually get our costs down, run the state more efficiently, make some smart changes on how we do business, and pass those savings along to the people.
You have a field of 6 Democrats vying for this nomination. Can you talk a little bit about what sets you apart? Because again, a lot of the issues are similar, and a lot of areas you agree with some of the other candidates. But what sets you apart? Why do you think you would be more successful and more effective as governor of the state of New Jersey?
Well, first, I'm the only one running with a tax cut plan who've actually spent all this time with experts figuring out how we're going to get our state on the best footing and lower costs for people, not just taxes, but childcare costs and energy costs, and dealing with some of the challenges that people are really facing and struggling with. Second, I've just got a long record of actually getting things done, of solving problems. People know in Washington, I started a group called the Problem Solvers Caucus that's helped me bring and get some of the toughest things accomplished and across the finish line. And I'm going to do the same thing for New Jersey, because people want somebody who's going to fight for them every day, willing to take a few punches. I don't mind taking some punches if it's good for people back home, and that's different, right? Like I'm not afraid to work 24/7 to get things done and to solve problems and to fight hard. We're gonna have to fight Trump and his administration on plenty of things when he messes with us and messes with our state, and I'm not afraid to do that. And we're gonna have to fight hard to make sure we get these costs down and these taxes down. We'll have to take on some long-standing interest to do it, and I'm ready.
Yeah, and you've campaigned heavily on cutting property taxes by as much as 15%. And that's a lot, considering the average bill tops $10,000 a year. Some people say it's not realistic. What do you have to say about the realistic nature of that plan?
Go to joshforjersey.com and read my plan. It's more than 40 pages long and backed by experts. So, that's unfortunately what you're saying is exactly what you hear from all these politicians. We can't fix things here in Jersey. It's just the way it is. You can't take on the bureaucracy. You can't actually clean up the government. We do things like buy salt for our streets, town by town, instead of using the power of 564 towns to buy it together. We don't negotiate hard for our prescription drug and healthcare plans for our state workers. We let New York rip us off. Like if you work in New Jersey, but for a New York company and sit in Jersey, New York takes all the tax dollars. It's $4 billion a year. We just let it happen. And the problem is with all these politicians who've been doing this forever, they just say, Jersey is what it is. It's expensive, instead of saying, how do we get more money back from Washington? How do we make sure we fight smart with our neighbors so that they don't stick it to us? The Port Authority, which runs our bridges and our tunnels. Did you know that we pay about 70% in Jersey of the tolls that goes to the revenue, and we get back about 40% of the money to build stuff in New Jersey? And when you ask people, why is that? They go, I don't know. It's just the way it's always been. Well, I'm sick and tired of the way it's always been. I want to make life more affordable for people in our great state. I love it here. Love our beaches and love the lakes, our great schools and people and cops and firefighters. We got it all. But the bottom line is we got to make it more affordable for people. And we need to stop saying we can't do stuff, because all these other states have done stuff. They've cleaned up their act. They've done efficiency reviews to run things better. We've never even looked at how to make it more efficient in New Jersey. And frankly, that's unacceptable to me, and I'm going to do it differently and piss some people off, but that's okay.
Well, on the topic of New York, you've been pretty outspoken when it comes to New York's congestion pricing plan. You've said it's not fair to New Jersey commuters. One of the Republican rivals is saying you got to flip the script and actually charge people coming into New Jersey. Can you talk a little bit about your stand when it comes to that? Because, you know, when it comes to cost of living, people traveling.
I mean, that idea
working,
is ridiculous. What's ridiculous is that New York charges our folks $9 a day, keeps every nickel of it, on top of the $18 to get to go over the bridge or through the tunnels for their congestion tax. And they're sending more trucks into northern New Jersey and polluting us at the same time. You know, you're talking about thousands of dollars a year for nurses and firefighters and teachers and cops. That's ridiculous, and we should tell New York to stick it and fight hard with them, and there's plenty of ways we can do it. In terms of charging people to come to Jersey, I want people to come to Jersey, right? I want them to spend money in our small businesses and support our restaurants, and I want them to come. I want them here. So I don't want to charge them more to come to Jersey. I want to get them to Jersey. I just want to tell New York, I don't think you're charging us anymore. It's over.
Josh Gottheimer, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, especially considering you had to pull over in your car after a mishap at the airport in Washington, D.C. Well, we appreciate it.
Thanks. Thanks so much. Good to see you. Take care.
You too. And that's going to do it for today. I'm Laura Jones. Thanks so much for watching New Jersey Politics. We look forward to seeing you back here next time.
Food brings people together. On Cooking with Copel, we combine culinary creativity with good conversation. This spring, we've invited all the candidates for governor to come into the Montclair kitchen, teach me to cook their favorite dish, and give the people of New Jersey a chance to get to know the individuals who would lead our state. It's going to be a fun and exciting way to get really involved in the democratic process. Can't wait to see you there.